Have you ever heard of a crime so perfectly executed it became a legend? A ghost story told around campfires? Today, we're diving into the baffling case of D.B.N. Cooper, the man who hijacked a plane, demanded a fortune, and then vanished into thin air. This isn't just a story about a heist. It's a story about a mystery that has haunted investigators for decades. But what if I told you the case isn't as unsolved as you think? What if the key to unlocking the truth has been hiding in plain sight all along? On November 24th, 1971, a man calling himself Dan Cooper boarded a Northwest Orient Airlines flight from Portland to Seattle. He was quiet, well-dressed, and ordered a bourbon and soda. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a flight attendant a note. Thinking it was just a man's phone number, she pocketed it. Cooper leaned in and said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The note was chillingly clear. He demanded $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills and 4 parachutes. The authorities on the ground scrambled. This was a high-stakes chess match at 30,000 feet. The airline's president, Donald Nyrup, authorized the payment, prioritizing the safety of the 36 passengers. In Seattle, the exchange happened exactly as Cooper planned. Passengers were released. The plane was refueled, and the money and parachutes were brought aboard. Cooper then gave his final instructions: fly towards Mexico City, stay below 10,000 feet, and keep the landing gear down. It was a bizarre request, but the crew had no choice but to comply. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, in the dead of night, amidst a raging storm, D.B.N. Cooper did the unthinkable. He lowered the rear air stairs of the Boeing 727, and with a bag of money strapped to him, he jumped into the freezing, turbulent darkness. He was never seen again. The search that followed was one of the most extensive in U.S. history. The FBI, local police, and even the military scoured the rugged terrain of the Pacific Northwest. They found nothing. No parachute, no briefcase, no body. It was as if the man and the money had been swallowed by the wilderness. For years, the FBI's knowjerk investigation chased thousands of leads. They interviewed over 800 suspects, from disgruntled veterans to career criminals. They analyzed everything from the cheap clip-on-tie Cooper left behind to the cigarettes he smoked. But who was this man? The flight crew described him as being in his mid-40s, around 6 feet tall, with a calm, business-like demeanor. He wasn't a panicked amateur. He was calculated, knowledgeable, and seemed to understand the aircraft's capabilities. Psychological profilers suggested he was likely a military veteran, perhaps an ex-paratrooper, someone comfortable with risk and familiar with the region. He wasn't acting out of desperation. He was executing a meticulous plan. The name Dan Cooper was almost certainly an alias, possibly inspired by a Belgian comic book hero. The media mistakenly reported his name as D.B.N. Cooper, and it stuck, adding another layer of myth to the legend. For 9 long years, the case went cold. The trail was frozen solid. Then, in 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram was digging a fire pit on the banks of the Columbia River at a place called Tina Bar. He unearthed 3 bundles of rotting cash. When his family took the money to the police, the serial numbers were a perfect match for D.B.N. Cooper's ransom money. Nearly $6,000, right there, buried in the sand. The discovery was a bombshell. It was the first and only piece of physical evidence from the jump ever found, but it created more questions than answers. How did the money get there? Tina Bar was miles away from the initial search zone and the projected flight path. Did Cooper land there? Did he lose some of the money during the jump, or did he bury it and never return? The FBI's forensic hydrologists even studied the river's flow patterns, concluding the money likely washed ashore years after the hijacking. This suggested Cooper probably didn't survive the jump. His body and the rest of the cash were likely lost forever in the vast, unforgiving wilderness. For decades, that was the accepted conclusion. A thrilling story with a tragic, ambiguous ending. But what if there's more to it? What if we've been looking at the wrong man all this time? Enter Eric Elias, one of the most dedicated independent investigators on the case. Elias didn't accept the lost in the woods theory. He went back to the primary evidence, specifically the tie Cooper left behind. In the 2000s, scientists using electron microscopes discovered something incredible on that tie. Thousands of particles of rare earth metals and commercial alloys, including pure, unalloyed titanium. This was a game changer. In the early 1970s, this specific combination of materials was incredibly rare. It wasn't something you'd just pick up anywhere. Elias traced these particles back to a very specific industry: high-tech aerospace manufacturing, particularly companies involved in developing supersonic transport planes, like Boeing's SST project, or advanced military aircraft. The particles pointed not just to an industry, but to a specific role within it, likely an engineer or a manager working in a specialized research and development facility. Euler's investigation led him to a man named Vince Peterson. Peterson was a brilliant, yet reportedly disgruntled, engineer who worked at a titanium research crucible in Pittsburgh. This facility was one of the few places in the world working with these exact materials at that time. Peterson fit the physical description, had a known penchant for bourbon, and matched the psychological profile of a man capable of such a daring act. He was an outsider, a quiet professional who felt he hadn't received the credit he deserved for his work. The theory is this: Peterson, a man with deep knowledge of aerodynamics and material science, meticulously planned the heist. He knew exactly what he was doing. But here's the twist. The popular image is of Cooper parachuting into the forest. Elias presents a different scenario. He believes Cooper never intended to land in the wilderness. His target was a small, private airfield. He miscalculated the wind drift in the storm, overshot his target, and ended up landing in or near the Columbia River. He likely drowned, losing the money in the process, which then washed ashore years later at Tina Bar. The particles on the tie aren't just a clue. They're a map. They point directly to a specific place, a specific job, and a specific type of person. While Vince Peterson was never charged and passed away in 2002, the evidence trail Elias has uncovered is incredibly compelling. The FBI officially closed the case in 2016, but for independent researchers, the hunt for D.B.N. Cooper has never been more alive. The ghost of the skyjacker might not be a ghost after all, but an aerospace engineer from Pittsburgh whose plan went wrong at the very last second. So, was it Vince Peterson? Or was it one of the other dozens of credible suspects? The legend of D.B.N. Cooper teaches us that sometimes the most fascinating part of a mystery isn't the crime itself, but the relentless pursuit of the truth, even 50 years later. The answer might just be hiding in the microscopic details we overlooked. What do you think? Did D.B.N. Cooper survive? Or does the evidence on the tie finally solve one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more investigations into the stories that history forgot.